Joy and Reid coming up, y'all. Stay tuned. We're going to be on the radio in a second. We'll bring it to you live. Stay tuned and encourage friends and family not to cancel their subscriptions. They're on Breitbart right now talking about Peter Strzok, which is a non-story. FBI agents are allowed to have personal opinions. All right, stay tuned. We're coming back.
This is MIP.
All right, 20 minutes before the hour. Again, folks, don't cancel your SiriusXM subscriptions because Steve Bannon is back on the radio over here every day. We are the resistance. Support this channel. You don't have to listen to them. We're the alternative. We're holding them accountable for sure. An article that piqued my interest, and I'm sure will pique yours if you haven't seen it already. We're going to post it to our social media. And folks, we're streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Make it plain. The great and wonderful Joyanne Reid is with us, and we're going to talk about her latest piece. If Doug Jones loses, don't blame black voters. It's in the Daily Beast. Joy, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Mark. I'm great. How are you?
Just fine. Glad to have you with us as always. So yeah, you this happens a lot when Democrats lose certain races, and then it's about the black vote and whether we turned out. We're already beginning to see through some reporting this narrative that the African American voters aren't engaged and may not turn out, and this may cost Doug Jones the race.
Yeah, and yet the thing is in part it is true that even African American sort of active politicos that I talked to in Alabama have said that the engagement of African American voters is not where it should be. But if that is the case, that's not why Doug Jones may lose the race. Black voters are about 26% of the adult population and of the voting population in Alabama. And while that is high when you compare it to, a place like Michigan where it's like 14%, or even a place like New York, in states like Michigan and New York, the white vote more or less is split. It's 60-40 or 55-45 Republican. In Alabama, it's 99% Republican. It's almost all Republican. There's some independents, but if no white voters, cross over, or if only 10 or 20 or 30% cross over, even if all the black voters voted for Doug Jones, it wouldn't be enough. So it's really, what these black politicos said to me that were quoted in this article is, look, this is a referendum on what white Alabama voters are willing to tolerate, not on black people. Because black people, the reasons for disengagement there are a lot of them. Look, they're in a state where they turned out in record numbers in 2008, but white voters in Alabama only gave Barack Obama 10% of their votes. He got the lowest vote there of almost anywhere. He only got 11 and 10% in his two runs for president. So if that's the level of support for a Democrat in the state of Alabama, Doug Jones can't win, and it's not because of black folks.
You also mentioned, and I heard a black voter say this recently, that it's not enough for Doug Jones just to say, I prosecuted the man for the 4 little girls, and only that. You mentioned that in the article, that's not enough to engage the black community. But then you also point something else out that I kind of wish I didn't know now. He did a Facebook ad praising the Confederate Army. Doug Jones did.
Yeah, I mean, the point that he was trying to make in the ad was, he praised this one particular regiment of the Confederate Army and the way that they sort of, it's the typical American retelling of the Confederate Army as this gallant army and this sort of gallantry on the battlefield, and then how after the war was over, everyone came together, blah, blah, blah. But he was trying to use that as kind of a metaphor for the way he would go and fight for bipartisanship. But it was clearly an attempt to woo white voters. Okay, it was pretty blatant. And this was an ad that was targeted all these ads are being targeted. So
Mm-hmm.
for white voters, Doug Jones is trying to give a little bit more moderate message. Even though, look, he had Joe Biden down there. On his website, it says he's pro-choice, which is deadly in Alabama.
Yeah.
He's being very honest about being pretty liberal for that state, but he's trying to kind of pivot toward voters who may be more Republican-leaning, which is basically all the white voters, and say sort of something nice about the Confederacy, which, is kind of a off to the black voters you're trying to get. And then to black voters, they have these targeted ads that are either in text or that are on Facebook, and they're all about the prosecution of the KKK bombers who killed those 4 little girls and injured 20 people at the 16th Street Baptist Church. Now, that's important.
Yeah.
It's the most heroic part of his legacy, but it's all most black voters know about him. They don't know
That's
what
it.
he would do for their communities. They don't know anything else about the guy.
Right. And he can't really talk about it down in Alabama, unfortunately. And the other reality check, too, Joy, let's face it, if he wins, how many years are guaranteed on the seat? Because he's still filling up an expired term, right?
That's right.
He'd have to run again in like 2 years, right?
That's right. And I spoke with a white political veteran down there who said, look, no matter which of these two guys wins, they're done in 2020.
Yeah.
Because neither of them can survive a large turnout election. This person pointed out to me that the only way that Roy Moore has ever gotten elected in Alabama has been in off-year races and low turnout races.
Mm-hmm.
He never wins when he has to run in a normal election.
Yeah.
And this is way abnormal. This is in December. They've never had a December election. December 12th, it's going to be very low turnout probably. And so that's the only reason Roy Moore even has a chance. But this person said to me, either one of them is very likely to lose in 2020.
And that's probably by design to have that December election because people knew that would help any Republican, especially Roy Moore. 866-99-SIRIUS, Joanne Reid here with us, folks. So basically, we should not give in to any argument that suggests black voter turnout or the black electorate might be to blame if Doug Jones loses. Now, a lot of the numbers say that at this hour, it's pretty much a done deal that Roy Moore is going to win this race anyway.
I think it's highly likely because I think there are two things going into it. The polls that show Doug Jones up, I think you have to take them with a grain of salt because, and the anecdotal stories of people with Doug Jones signs in their lawn. I don't think there are very many people who are proud to vote for Roy Moore in Alabama. I don't think that you would, but for a few, pastors that are putting it in their signs in front of their churches and, very weirdly supporting him very openly. A lot of people who are going to vote for Roy Moore are not going to tell pollsters they're going to do it. They're just going to do it quietly. And I think that there's a reverse kind of Bradley effect where people are telling pollsters the right answer, quote unquote, the right moral answer is to say, I'm going to vote for Doug Jones. But Mark, as well as I do, if you're a Republican, you vote for Republicans. It's very hard for a Republican to vote for a Democrat or a Democrat to vote for a Republican. They just don't do it.
We also have seen, you saw the Republican Party leadership, even Mitch McConnell, denounce Roy Moore, say he should drop out. And then they just kind of waited it out. They allowed Roger Stone to organize, in his words, Al Franken's time in the barrel. They allowed Cernovich to come after John Conyers. And then that kind of took over the news cycle long enough for Republicans to wait it out and now go right back down there and support Roy Moore again. After all that talk, they waited it out. They weaponized the allegations. Well, they tried to weaponize them against Franken. They weaponized them against Conyers. And frankly, Joe, I'd like to get your take on that, too, just how it seems to me a double standard for Democrats to say Franken should stay and Conyers should go. I'm not condoning Conyers or anyone else's behavior, but the black congressman's got to resign. But it's like they're able to use that against us and weaponize us and get us fighting with each other, forcing one of ours to resign while they wait it out and go right back down there and give Roy Moore some money.
Yeah, and I think this shows you a fundamental difference between Republicans and Democrats. First of all, Republicans understand Democrats a lot more than the reverse, right? Republicans understand Democrats' weaknesses. They know they can take what's clearly a series of Republican scandals, the President of the United States having 15-plus accusers of sexual harassment, Roy Moore being an accused serial child molester, and that they can take those really bad facts and turn them back on Democrats and get Democrats to run. And Democrats will run away. They always do. And they will fold, even if the allegations against them, while horrible, are not child molestation, right? They've managed to make Al Franken equal to a child molester in the minds of Democrats, so that Democrats freak out and say, well, we have to clear ourselves out. What they don't understand, what Democrats don't understand, is that while it's the moral thing to do to take responsibility and resign or whatever it is that these individual politicians decide to do, it's not as if doing that moral action is going to make Republicans back down or make them back off. They're just going to come and lean in and come for more people, because Republicans fight politics as if it's war, and Democrats do politics by the Marquise de Queensberry rules. And that's why Republicans can win when they really don't have an argument. I mean, in this case, they are defending a serial child molester, and very proudly so. And they really don't care what anyone thinks, and they're going to vote for him.
And they're definitely going to vote for him no matter what. Do you think it was unfair for people to demand John Conyers resign and not Al Franken?
So this is a difficult one, because again, I feel like if you don't have discernment, you don't have anything, right? If everything's the same, then nothing matters. And all of these things are different. The Conyers case, and it's sick that it's Mike Cernovich that's the person that's outing people. He also came after Sam Cedar, because Mike Cernovich is a rape apologist. If you read what he still keeps on his Twitter feed, it's vile and crazy. But he is now pretending to have some sort of moral authority to point out bad actors on the other side of the aisle. That's crazy in and of itself. But the fact is, if there were real settlements, if John Conyers actually settled for sexual harassment, that is a really, objectively bad thing. And it is an inherent different thing from what Al Franken is accused of. All these things, while bad, are on a scale of degrees. So I don't think everyone should be herded out the door as soon as any allegation of any degree is made against them. I think they're all different. And I think as adults, we have to have some discernment and treat each of these cases differently. But on the scale, I would say at the top of the scale is the child molester. I think we need to agree that he should be at the top. And then maybe second in the scale is the person with 15, 16, 17 allegations of sexual harassment or worse sitting in the White House. If we're ignoring the two people at the top of the scale and heading down the scale, which, again, the women who've, been victimized by all of these degrees of abuse are all suffering. But can we have some discernment and say, wait a minute, if we're going to hold people accountable at this end of the scale, how in the world are we not holding people accountable for alleged child molesting? Well, it's bizarro world.
Well, and now that you mentioned that, Joy and Reid with us folks 10 minutes before that, now that you mentioned that process of discernment, it's almost unfair to victims to do the one-size-fits-all and ignore the complexity of each and every case. Each and every one is different. Each and every one impacts people differently. You got we were talking about Elaine Chao aired part of her remarks at Women Rule at Politico. When was that, yesterday, Brittany, that she spoke? And she's like, well, you just have to forget about it. You just have to move on. You just have to, don't dwell on it. And just literally, if you've been a victim, a Me Too victim, just pretend like it never happened. And so you're right. I think discernment is the best way to go, so that you give each and every case its own value, so to speak, or its own examination. But you're right. Some of them, we're talking about children. What can be more egregious than that? So you look in the case of John Conyers, as bad as it may be, are we back to crack and powder cocaine? Because he's black, is his offense greater, and does it cost his job? Whereas someone, that's crack. Someone who uses powder, so to speak, Roy Moore, that's okay. He can just get a slap on the hand and show up and take the oath of office to be in the Senate. So,
but for Republicans, though, they don't operate that way.
No.
Right? They will defend Roy Moore and condemn John Conyers in the same sentence, and blow right past the irony of that, because they aren't trying to play this game for morality's sake. They're trying to play this game for power. And because Republicans are purely focused on gaining and holding power and on extinguishing the other side. I mean, I was talking last night, Mark, to someone from Florida who was making the point that this you can't even call this a war because only one side is fighting.
Yeah,
right? One
that's
side
real.
is
It is. That's right.
retreating.
Right.
And
Right.
one side is finding ways to cull its own ranks,
Yeah.
to put down its own soldiers,
Yeah.
while the other side is literally fighting a war. Republicans knew Donald Trump was what he is right now, everything that he is right now. They knew about the Access Hollywood stuff. They knew about the accusations. They knew about his moral turpitude, and they literally don't care. They will keep him in there no matter what Robert Mueller finds, because all they care about is power.
Yeah.
Democrats are always looking around to see, are we perfect? Is our candidate perfect enough? Are we perfect enough? Who can we get rid of so we can seem more perfect so the other side will work with us? The other side won't work with you.
No. As a matter of
Figure
fact,
it out, Democrats.
yeah. Well, no, as a matter of fact, you mentioned only one side. If there's any war on our side, it's with each other.
Yeah,
We fight. And I was saying yesterday, I think we have to accept the fact we it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We fight amongst each other because we have the bigger tent and more diversity. So the Democratic Party is 4 or 5 smaller parties in one. It's a women's party. It's a black party. It's a Latino party. It's an LGBTQIA party. It's a working poor, working class party. All those different parties, we have to figure out a way to come together and not be at war with each other, because we can't fight each other and then go up against the other side. And having said that, we're almost out of time. At time, Joy didn't ask me to say this. I'm going to say it anyway. I hope she didn't get mad at me. Speaking of which, we need to support Joy and each other. So we kind of in the same barrel ourselves. I don't know if you saw this, but when Yashar Ali, your friend and mine, tweeted that Bannon, the SiriusXM press release, that Bannon is going to be back on SiriusXM radio every day again. See, they understand the value of radio. People say, I'm canceling my subscription to SiriusXM. And we were like, no, don't do that. You need to support. We have a progressive channel. We have the opposite. You support what you have and not, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Same thing for Joy. Joy is one of the most, if not the most progressive voice on television and on radio here with us. She has her own podcast. She's a fellow Sage like me. Happy birthday in advance, too. So we need to support Joy and stand with her and stop fighting with each other. Joy is a friendly. She's an ally. I stand with Joy, and I hope all of you will do the same. We're going to have our disagreements. We're going to all have our missteps, but we cannot take one another out, because then we won't have anybody left to stand up there. If all of our members of Congress resign based upon a Stone and Cernovich mined allegation, all of us resign and they all sitting up in office, Roy Moore and everybody else, that's just not going to work. Joy, love you.
Thank you. Love you more. Thank you, Mark.
And watch AM Joy every Saturday and Sunday, y'all. Stand with Joy Reid. Okay, thank you. We will make way for Stephanie Miller and Tom Hartman, and then Michelangelo Signorelli, and then Dean Obadella. If all minds are clear, do not cancel your subscription. Love radio trumps hate radio. If all minds are clear, it has been made plain.